This is the correct stream. Sorry for any technical problems. This is the correct stream. Sorry for any technical problems.
trip, and Jen Saltzman from our International Education Office. We're really excited to put this together for you, and that Ryan Tomaszewski was willing to share with us some of the work that he's been doing in Jordan, and particularly focusing on the GIS as a tool for different situations like refugee camp. And I'll turn it over to Ryan to get into what he's doing. And Jenny and I will come back up at the end in case anybody is interested in
Okay. Okay.
But we'll come back up in case you have any questions or thoughts around how to engage, whether you're a student or faculty member or staff member and you're interested in getting involved either with Ryan or other types of partnerships.
Okay, great. Thanks. Like I said, I am live streaming, so I don't know if it's honestly working. I'm taking a gamble on doing a live stream for the very first time while doing a presentation. We've got 4 people on the stream. Doesn't look like the camera's coming through, but if you're watching the stream, welcome. I'm going to switch over to the presentation now, and we'll just, let's record this. Okay. All right. So let me do this. So if this is, by the way, this is how streaming works. I have this software that kind of switches what the people in the stream are seeing. I don't know if it's working, but we'll find out. Let's see. Let me know if you're hearing something, question mark. Okay. Okay. So let's go to the talk though. Okay. All right, so welcome. Yes, this is the talk about my work with UNHCR, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, in the Zaatari camp of Jordan. We're scheduled from 11 until 12:30, so I know some of you might have to leave, no problem. I'll talk about, here's the outline for today. I'll tell you a little bit about me. I recognize some of you. I've been at RET for about 10 years. Some people I recognize, looks like we have some students here and so forth. So we'll talk about the bigger goal of all this, especially how can you get involved and so forth, all right? So why don't we get started here? Okay, great. All right, so a little bit about me. I'm an associate professor. I've been at RET for 10 years. I recognize Maureen Valentine way back when. This is kind of very personal because we have Jim Myers now, who's the provost for international education. He was my direct supervisor back when the Center for Multidisciplinary Studies was in CAST. And in great RET tradition, in the very first year, I had to leave CAST because things got changed around. Jim eventually became the provost. CAST is now the College of Engineering Technology. And are you the dean, right? No. Oh.
No.
Okay.
Back to department chair, but thank you, Brad.
Oh, okay. All right. You just got a promotion.
We'll be doing soon.
Yeah. You've just been promoted. Yeah. Congratulations. My background, I'm probably the only, as far as I know, PhD in geography at RIT. So I got my PhD from Penn State, and my academic keywords, I do something called geographic information science. The quick way to explain it is maps, digital mapping. It's much more than that. And my application of that is disaster management and displacement. And that's really kind of, these two are my connection to Jordan. Just a little bit about me. I just did a sabbatical last spring. I traveled across the Atlantic Ocean through the Great Lakes on a freighter ship as a writer's retreat. So I'll talk a little more about my international stuff. I've done guerrilla tracking in Rwanda, which is a country I've done a lot of work in, and so forth. And that kind of leads to this slide, my international work. I'm very actively engaged in international work at RIT, yet I've never ever been to an RIT campus. I've never been to Dubrovnik, I've never been to Zagreb, I've never been to Dubai. So I represent a kind of, in the broad spectrum of international possibilities here at RIT. I do a lot of engaged on the ground, sort of the place really has to matter for why you're there. And I think that's best exemplified in this first point, National Science Foundation International Research Experience for Students. An alumni of that program, Omar, a PhD student in engineering. Yeah. he was funded to go to Germany. Was it last summer? Yeah. So he spent last summer funded through the National Science Foundation to spend time in Germany. I actually have another program going now, IRES in Rwanda. I did the first faculty, as far as I know, what they told me, the first faculty-led study abroads to Africa. You're seeing more faculty now that are engaging in Africa. I mean, it's one thing, yes, there's companies that do study abroad trips, but this was in-house, on the ground. I took students to refugee camps in Rwanda. That's the picture from 2017, and then actually I used that to turn that into the NSF grant. And through my career, I've worked a lot with numerous UN organizations. I've mentioned UNHCR, but I've worked with UN OCHA, UN Outer Space Affairs, there is such a thing. And like a lot of faculty, I mean, I've got collaborations basically all over the world. And, you know, I not necessarily want to talk all about my background, but this is my research lab, the Center for Geographic Information Science and Technology. This is, if you're interested more about who I am and what I do and the research, funded research I do, that's my my little bit about me. So that's me. But we're here today to talk about the Zaatari refugee camp, okay? And let's start with some background. Let's take a trip to Jordan, okay? Ready for my stunning animation here, ready? So we're gonna blast off in a few seconds here. So that's RIT. And I do GIS, so I have fun playing around with maps. So we're gonna go away, you know. Anybody here, raise your hand if you've ever been to Jordan. I'm just curious if anybody's actually been to Jordan. No? So we're gonna take the outer space way to go. Jordan, if just a little bit about the country, you know, it's in the Middle East. It's a strong U.S. ally. It's actually called the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, so it is a monarchy, but it's a modern monarchy. And it's sort of, if you look at the bigger regional context around it, Syria to the north, Saudi Arabia to the south, Iraq to the east, Israel to the west. You know, there's a lot of things going on around it. But this is the Zaatari refugee camp, okay? This is from what's called OpenStreetMap, and that's what it looks like. So you can see it's a bounded camp. You know, refugee camps, that's generally, anybody ever been in a refugee camp? I don't know. Okay, which one, where have you been?
Calais, the jungle.
Calais? What country is that in?
France.
In France. Oh, okay.
It's no longer, they've closed it.
Okay, yeah, I remember seeing the news. Right. This, in the terms of international things, you know, this is an officially designated refugee camp. Talking about refugees and international law and so forth, that's a whole nother discussion. But the basic process is when you have a refugee situation, the Kingdom of Jordan invites the international community in to help them deal with a refugee issue. So in terms of the chain of command, it's the Jordanian government, then UNHCR, and then implementing partners and so forth. So I don't know that case in France, if that was more official or informal.
It was informal, so
Right.
I misspoke. That's right, that was the big difficulty.
Yes.
Was that the UN wouldn't do that, or
Right.
the government didn't invite them in, so that's.
Right. Oh, okay. Okay. Let's get you with the screen. I don't know. So that's what the camp kind of looks like from a map view. And this is the bigger picture. This is a map from 2013 when the Syrian refugee crisis was sort of at its height, right? So again, the regional context, there's Jordan, there's Israel, there's Lebanon, and so forth. And let me take a time out from you guys because I had a comment on the stream. I just want to make sure this is working. We're stuck on that screen. Let's see the Windows capture. PowerPoint. And this might be a bomb. I don't know. Let's see. And okay. So behind the scenes tech stuff, window capture. It's supposed to be taking my PowerPoint and sending it up, but the person says that it's stuck on a certain screen. So sorry for the interruption with this. Window. Aha. That's probably what I did wrong there. PowerPoint. Yeah. Okay. I don't want to spend too much time on this. I guess we'll just. Okay. Well, those of you streaming, you might have to just listen to it. I might be running into a technical issue here because I don't want to hold things up too much on this. But all right, anyway, sorry for the interruption. But anyways, regional picture, right? 2013. So if you look at some of these, 6.8 million in need of assistance, 4.25 million internally displaced, and we're still hearing about that in the news. But then you have people leaving Syria, going into Jordan, going into Lebanon, going into Turkey, into Iraq, and so forth. So what I'm going to talk to you today is right about here. That's Zaatari camp. So if this is the border with Syria, this is where a lot of people from southern Syria came into Jordan, right? And as I've been in this area, before all the civil conflict started, back in the day, the border would go back and forth all the time. My Jordanian friends talked about going into Syria to go shopping and so forth. So they were already, of course, it's like going to Canada or something. I'm from Buffalo originally. Going to Canada we would do that all the time. Especially, I'm old enough, before you needed a passport, right? You would just go into Canada, go shopping, and so forth. So culturally, these are related areas. And I forgot to mention, I'm wearing a traditional Jordanian. Normally it would be, I don't actually remember the word in Arabic for what they call this thing, but this in Jordan is their thing. So I wore it for that. Okay. So that's what Jordan had to deal with. At least in 2013, almost 500,000 Syrians in need of assistance. Some went into refugee camps. Others became what are known as urban refugees, that they just are living in Amman, the main city. They're living in the northern parts, Irbid, and so forth. And that's what happens with refugees really in a lot of places. This, just for the talk today, so now fast forward, where are we at in 2020? So as of today, we have 76,000 people living in the Zaatari refugee camp. So the peak, back in the day, the peak was about 120,000. So it's gone down, but still, there's still a lot of people living there. So it's essentially a small city out in the middle of the desert, right? And so it has all the sort of issues of a city, infrastructure, transportation, social services. On top of the fact that people living there are refugees, you have that whole extra sort of overhead that goes with it. And that's what we'll talk about. Okay, so what's it like? What is Zaatari like? So that's, as part of the talk, I just wanted to show you, these are all pictures that I've taken to give you a tour of what's it like in a refugee camp, or at least in this particular one. So I'll start with, and this was very kind of personal and emotional on some level for me because I didn't even know where to begin. I have so many pictures, there's so much we could talk about. I just started with this, a caravan. This is a picture I took last year as part of my sabbatical when I was there. This is where people typically live in metal structures that are called caravans, not unlike in America. Do you guys remember the FEMA trailers when we had like Hurricane Harvey? Kind of a metal structure. And like Zaatari is considered a quote-unquote 5-star refugee camp. Like, they have electricity, they have metal structures, they have running water. If you come with me to Rwanda and see camps there, the more traditional African style, they're mud buildings, limited electricity and so forth. You can see though, so 2013 to 2020 now, 7 years, people have been living here. They're trying to make it, making it home. I always tell people, just think if it was you. Just think if you were forced out of where you're living, you had a comfortable life. Syria is a middle income country. Imagine you're used to living in a nice house with a car and just life, and this thing happens, and now you are living in another country, and you're trying to pick up the pieces of your life, And so beautification projects, right? You can see on this building, they're painting, scenes of, sailboats and stuff to. Now, Zaatari is also really interesting in that there's no cars allowed. The refugees are not allowed to have cars. So it's this kind of strange world to, as an outsider of like, the refugees have donkeys. So like, this is how you get around, right? So this is a market. This is either selling or renting chairs, and they use donkey carts to pull things around. People also ride bicycles a lot. So in some sense, it's almost like, if we get rid of automobiles, and it's a big camp. Transportation just in the camp is difficult. I don't know if you got a sense of the overall scale of the camp. It's at least probably about 2 miles wide by 2 miles by 1 mile. So it's a big place, 80,000 people. Syrians are very, very entrepreneurial. So this, I thought, was a really interesting, this is a small business. So what this is, if you guys can see it, it's a printer and a scanner with just a power cord going off to power somewhere. And this is right outside of the base camp. So in the base camp is where all the official offices are, UNHCR. So if you're a refugee and you need to get like a pass or some kind of documentation is really, really important. Here's my family size, therefore I have 10 kids. I need this amount of aid and support. But a smart entrepreneur, this guy set up a little copying stand right outside the door to where you go into base camp. So if I need to make a copy of my passport, boom, there's somebody right there for like, $1 dinar, And you see a lot of that, very organic, sort of little businesses popping up and so forth. And that's what I'll show you now. And this next thing is a video. And this is from 2016. This is me just driving through the camp. Kind of what it looks like. I don't speak French, right? The Champs-Élysées. They named it after the street in Paris. I tried to use this video because not too many faces are being shown and so forth. But this is kind of what it looks like. I don't remember exactly the time of year, but there's a view a little bit of what a market street looks like. Arabic, of course, on the buildings. This is kind of what it's looking like right about now in the wintertime. A lot of people, even me, I think there's like a sort of misconception about the Middle East in general, that it's just blazing hot in deserts and camels and yes, there is that stuff there. However, in Jordan at least, it gets really, really cold. It rains, they flood, they make fires. So right now, this is a big issue they deal with every year is the wintertime. Is just rain and mud and cold and making sure buildings are secure and so forth. And again, this was from February of last year when I was there on my sabbatical. And so I'm interested in natural disasters. So that's what they're dealing with at this time of year. Okay. And so what is it like to live there? This is a picture I took in 2015 inside of one of those caravans. Now in 2015, things probably could have changed since then, but a lot of kind of going, when I talked to my Syrian friends, he said we didn't sit on the floor back at home in Syria, but this is what a lot of people do. Like they just get mats to sit on the floor, communal eating and so forth. And in some cases, at least in 2015, it's a terrible picture in terms of the photographic quality. It's all washed out, but it's a good representation. There's the food. Again, culture, bread is very, very sacred to the meal and the family home and so forth. So that's just a day in a life there. Again, I wanted to show you guys just random scenes of everyday life as best I could. So as you saw the mud, everyone takes their shoes off and cultural reasons as well. I want to say that maybe that's dill. I'm not really sure. It looks like dill. So, somebody went to the market, there's the dill to make the meal, they take their shoes off and so forth. And I just also wanted to make this point too. Life goes on in the refugee camp, right? So lots of children being born there, and this was baby Abdullah Hamad. He's now probably 6 years old. I think he was born 2014 or 15. I don't remember his birthday, but little RET student being born in a refugee camp, right? So lots of marriages, lots of and that actually has been an issue, right? Sometimes young girls getting married at a really young age out of practical reasons, just to support them. Something I've learned over the years is that the part of Syria where a lot of the refugees come from, it's the southern part. It's kind of a rural area. They're a little more traditional in their gender roles and how women are, and so they've worked on that. They don't want, they want young women to go to college and school, not get married, and so forth. Sort of like in America, we had those issues maybe 50 years ago, and we've kind of made a lot of progress in that. But people are getting married, babies are happening, life is going on, and that's an interesting thing too, growing up in a refugee camp. I mean, for a lot of these kids, some of them, at 2015, they probably were, dealing with trauma of surviving violent armed conflict and so forth. But some of them, life, again, growing up, this is the only life they know, and maybe it'll be good for them because of the services we'll talk about in a second. But this is also good to look at a caravan, people putting little gardens out and so forth. Little things once you go there. International donations, I believe that's from Saudi Arabia. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has made a lot of donations of things. And when you go to these places, you see a lot of the impact of the international community. People have their flags of who's donated what and so forth. I'll take a quick coffee sip. And, okay. Any questions so far? Yeah.
are they always bound within that 1 mile, 2 mile camp, or they are allowed to go out?
That is, yes, good question. They've made progress in that regard. Over the years, the early years, it was really difficult to get out of the camp. Remember, like I talked about, showed the picture of the guy, like the little business. You had to go get a permit. You had to request things weeks in advance. Over time, things have loosened up a lot. So now I think you're just free to go. You're free to come and go to the camp on your own transport and everything, and that can be its own challenge. But yeah, things have gotten a lot better in that regard. So yeah. And of course, there's been a lot of things in the camp related to dealing with the population. Youth education. I use this picture a lot. I took it in 2016 of. This is an effort called the Tiger Girls, which I thought was kind of ironic because we're the RET Tigers. It's some acronym I don't honestly remember, but it's a program in the camp designed for girls aged, I want to say like 5 years old to 18, to get young women empowered, right? To not get married when you're 14, to do something and learn skills and get education and so forth, especially because your life has been interrupted because now you're a refugee. That's a big issue and so forth. So here we have girls learning about information technology, mapping, and so forth, right? And there's a lot of that going on in the camp. And also, I should have mentioned this, as you're seeing these slides, and think about what you do and how that it could be relevant or germane to going there, and that's where I'm going with this at the end of it. Okay. These were some powerful images I took in 2016. I'm calling it art therapy. This guy here at the top was an artist. He was an artist back in Syria, and you have a lot of artwork representing sort of catharsis of dealing with what they went through. So the dead body becomes the tree that's growing into a new future, the media attention on all the violence and so forth. And they have a whole art gallery, and they're trying to be entrepreneurial about it. Can we sell this? I've always told them, find rich people around the world that might want to buy artwork from a refugee camp. Why not? And have the money go directly to the refugees. In my mind, it's that simple, but it doesn't, doesn't work that easy. But they're doing it. And at the end, I'm going to talk about briefly about a new effort called Made in Zaatari that addresses that. And so forth. Youth activity. They have what are called youth-friendly spaces. Almost kind of like it reminds me from growing up, like going to summer camp almost. Like when I was a kid growing up near Buffalo, in the summer, they would have, in the summertime, I would go off and play basketball or do sports, play tennis with some, scheduled activities. They do a lot of that kind of stuff. Because again, in a refugee camp, what do you do? And where do you go? You don't necessarily have a job. Employment, livelihood is always a big issue. What do you do with young people? They go to school. You got to keep them engaged. So basketball courts, and they do all kinds of stuff. They have a lot of programs, youth activities, and it's a really great thing. And of course, just kind of just for kind of fun, I put this in here. They've got a lot of cats. A lot of cats everywhere. Really, that's not just the camp, but that's Jordan. So if you like cats, a lot of street cats. I think that's a cultural thing. I always think of the Egyptians. They would bury their cats with them and stuff. But they love their cats. They've got really, really good coffee. Again, most respectfully, I thank you for this coffee. This is to me, compared to this is like brown water. Compared to this is like drinking motor oil. This is dark, strong. And then they do the Turkish style coffee where they mix cardamom with it. If you've ever had that, that's what they call it. Turkish style, I believe, is the method of cooking it, and then Lebanese is they take cardamom pods and they grind it up with the coffee, and you get this nice little thing of sludge at the bottom, and when you've reached the end. And of course, if you like Middle Eastern style food, they have the greatest. Refugee camp falafel is the best ever, and that's when I look forward to getting it. They put spicy stuff, French fries, and so if you've never had falafel, it's probably the best I've ever had. Okay. So that's a little background just about the camp. Again, I could show you more and more and more pictures, but hopefully you got a sense of what it looks like there, what life is like there. Let me tell you now about the work that I've been doing. I'll show you another quick little video. So my area, Geographic Information Systems, we'll do another kind of fly-in. This was a video that was made last year, and it does, let me see, I'll put the sound back on. Whoa, sorry guys. Some of you are deaf though, so you didn't hear it right now.
It's like they're, well, life is like they're,
Whoa.
let me tell you now about the work.
Sorry about that. Okay, the mic is off now.
Information system makes people believe why this was a video.
Okay, I'll keep the sound off. I'm having technical issues with the sound. You don't really need sound. You'll hear Arabic speaking, but it's
sound.
What? Oh man, hang on, guys. You know what? This is good though, because this is what life in the camp is like. Because like nothing ever works. And let's just kill the sound. Okay. All right. I think I've blasted your ears out. We all need sign language interpretation now, right? Okay. And okay. Here we go. Yeah. So right now there's music playing. There's the camp, but it's all, you don't need sound for it. It's all subtitled and so forth. So that's my project. They've changed the lab since then. My name is Marwan. I'm from Syria. I'm now living in the camp. This is Youssef. That's actually the father of the baby I showed you earlier. And these are all the refugees that I've worked with over the years. And there's this guy talking about how the project's so great and important and so forth. And, So right now I'm narrating on top of this. So I came to the camp. I saw the need for mapping. Sufyan, by the way, has cancer. He's wearing a mask. How maps can be used for decision making. They're learning how to use field data collection tools and so forth. That's GIS software, the thing that I teach here at RIT. It's just a short video. We wanted refugees to be aware of what was out there. So basically, the project was created because I felt the refugees themselves could do the mapping. Typically, mapping is done by specialists, special consultants, and so forth. But you have a readily available workforce of people, a lot of time on their hands, and they know the camp better than anybody else. So that's when the vision I've had all along is to empower them, and it's been a really smash success. We've had a lot of turnover of young. She's probably like about 20, I think. A lot of come and then they leave and get married and so forth. So we've always worked a lot on gender representation in the group and so forth. And that's a video that UNHCR put out for us on the project. So that's that. Okay. So again, if you're listening to the stream, I'm sorry if the tech issues. Hopefully you can hear my audio. Write something in the chat box if you're actually seeing anything. I don't know if you are or not. But at least you can listen to me. So this is a graphic I put together last year just to summarize the project, right? So what is Refugee-GIS, Refugee Geographic Information System? What is the project actually doing? We're doing mapping services, going in the field, collecting data analysis, modeling and simulation. If it wasn't clear, I'm from the computing college, so computer stuff is what I like, is what we do over there. So applying computing to problems the camp is facing, multimedia, something called story maps, using maps and other artifacts to tell a narrative about what's happening. I showed this picture earlier, capacity building, community outreach, just training. I mean, sometimes GIS can be a gateway into computing, right? I see that at RIT all the time. I put Maureen on the spot earlier, but you'll get somebody a student from civil engineering or environmental science. They'll come over to the computing college and take a class, and they'll discover other things about GIS or computing in general they might not have been aware of, that programming and web stuff and other tech areas. So that's something to think about, the bigger technology ecosystem that can come from this. And because I'm having all the audio problems, so teaching refugees to be the teachers. So right now he's speaking Arabic. He's using one of my lessons. He's looking at a map of the United States, but here he is teaching other refugees about mapping, right? And that's ultimately, as an educator, you want to teach the teacher. You want to, the old saying, what, teach a man to fish, kind of that whole thing. Like I know when I go there, I'm not going to stay there. I'm not moving to Jordan to be there. So when I go there, I really want to empower them to take it and run with it. And they have. If you look at what they're doing now, I'm almost like I've put myself out of work, which is a good thing. I'm like, there's no more I can teach you, and so forth. I've done a lot of connecting students. This is just one representative example. So last summer I was there, I had an NSF REU, so I've used it as an opportunity to connect students in. So what you're seeing here is I'm in the Zaatari camp in a caravan. This is the Refugee IS team. Might be a little hard to see, but these are undergraduate students at the RIT campus, and we did a sort of meet and greet Google Hangout call. And for a lot of undergraduates, I'd like to think this is a unique opportunity we're providing to them. How many students can say they got to meet, Syrian refugees even virtually, and so forth. And and a lot of times they're not that far in age. Like Marwan, she's pretty much, as far as I know, she's about the same age as some of the young women in the picture, right? They're both 20, 21, 22 maybe, and just however life turned out, she was born in Syria and they were born in the United States, and life that happened to them both. And what kind of exchange can we get from that? And I think for the students and for the refugees themselves, it's been a really great sort of cultural exchange. Yeah?
Ryan, were your REU students working on something related to the refugee camp, or was this just
Not directly. No, they weren't. But I have done that. I mean, for sake of time, I didn't put every possible thing over the years. But yeah, I've had student master's theses come out of using the camp as a case study. The new NSF IRES in Rwanda is more refugee related. These guys are, hey Tony, how's it going? This group was looking more at sort of straight disaster management issues and simulations. But I was there, I was in the camp. I travel. I told you about my international stuff. I always tell my students what I'm doing. I don't leave it invisible. Like, I'm out for 2 weeks. Don't bother me. I tell them I'm going to the camp. Here's why I'm leaving. Here's what I'm doing. I'm very transparent about it because I see myself as an educator. Tell the students what you're doing. If I was going on vacation, but I don't go on vacation during the semester, obviously. So learn about your faculty. Look at their web pages. What are they doing? Find out what's going on, right? We want to give I feel we want to give our students the best possible experience for their time. Why did they come to RIT versus other choices, right? And so to me, this is a kind of thing. So ideally, these students say, we had a good experience. We got to meet refugees and stuff like that. And so that's something. Yeah.
Is your data mined or utilized by other entities? Like, in other words, you have in a sense of a census and sort of categorizations of, I don't know how to ask this the right way. You have a mapping kind of system, and then do other entities where are certain illnesses present, or where are more people of a certain demographic, or so are there agencies saying, can we use your data to?
We'd like to do more of that. Yes, absolutely. We want to do more of that, and they have done, the team themselves. I've also told them to think like a business, like a consulting business. Like, we're from the World Food Program and we want to know about nutrition levels in the camp. Can you go out and do the survey for us? So they will hire a Refugee IS to go out because they now have that skill, designing a survey, collecting data, analyzing it, creating reports, and feeding it back in. They've done some of that, and we want to do more. Because it took a long time just to get to that point, right? Giving them computers, showing them how to use it, how to collect data, there's a lot that goes into that. It's just, and a lot of times NGOs would do it. They can do it more quickly, more cost effectively, and so forth. And the actual data itself is not always publicly available, but some of it, there's something called OpenStreetMap. We'd like to do more kind of open data for the camp and so forth.
Do you conduct the census that populates this, or does the UNHCR create that census and then feed it to you to create the graphics? I personally don't get involved with it. I think UNHCR has its own kind of internal mechanisms. We're still trying to even build awareness of refugees in the camp itself. It's making progress, and I think they need more success stories. They did one on they did a survey I think on businesses and shops. So they went out and collected info on all the shops everywhere. A real challenge in the camp is it's very dynamic. I published papers on using remote sensing to look at the camp from above and then look at the change. Because they'll, imagine you have your house and Monroe County knows where you live, and then you pick the house up on wheels and roll it over 20 streets over to be next to your cousin. So now where do you live? And they deal with that all the time. They can't, UNHCR can't keep up with the refugees because they're going to go and like imagine ripping your electrical service out and splicing it into your neighbor and like, wait, I thought you're paying for, like just basic infrastructure issues. So the Refugee.is is supposedly going to help with that too. They're going to go out, look at households where they're living, utility connections. There's endless amounts of projects that are all spatially oriented, hence the need for Refugee.is. Yeah, sure. Okay. Hang on just a second here. Yeah. So here's an example of, this is a product, you can't probably see it, Refugee.is. The source is UNHCR Refugee.is. Whenever you make an official map product, you have to kind of stamp it, mapping is power, right? That's what I tell my students, like, the discourse of a map, when we all have to deal with paying taxes, right? When it's somewhere, your little boundary of land, parcel, if you own a house, that's how much money you're paying for basically your polygon, right? Somebody controls that. I live now in Lake Ontario, so I've got the extra overhead of flood zones. Anybody here live in a flood zone, play flood insurance, right? So that where that line in the map is, can cause you a lot of money. So this is from probably March of 2017. It's got the UNHCR logo on it. This is an official map product that Refugee.is, the project, helped create, right? So showing them, how to make a map, right? We all sort of take maps for granted, but the layout, the design, the colors, presentation, the whole thing, it's a lot of work that goes into learning how to do something like that. And that's just one example of the success here. Okay, and so this is some more modern stuff. So last time I was at the camp was in November. You can't really see, they have a new lab now. UNHCR, the Community Services Division that's in charge of Refugee.is, they've really invested a lot in the project. And like I said, I feel like I'm running out of things to teach them because you've got, like, this guy, super motivated. Like, just, if you're, you want motivated students. You want students who want to learn, who aren't just, if you're a teacher here, right? That's what makes the joy of teaching, are the students who are really engaged. And like, so this guy, he's learned all about like data visualization, data graphics, and you can help guide him. Here's, I think there's been some turnover. This is what we use to help advertise for the event. These are women who are showing them how to teach, how to build lessons around GIS, right? I think a lot of us who get, with a PhD, sometimes we kind of forget about learning how to teach if you're going to get an academic job. I know when I was in grad school, I taught one class in Penn State, and then boom, now I'm a teacher. Like, and then RIT has a strong tradition of teaching and so forth. So teaching just, but how many of us ever really were taught how to teach versus just, I'm using my own experiences. Like, here's a bunch of PowerPoints, go for it. Like, okay, pedagogical development. So that's what this is. Again, I don't know if you can really see it clearly, but stop I want them to, things in Arabic. It's so obvious, right? Make lessons in Arabic. You guys have learned all this stuff. So take these frameworks and make them into Arabic and go with it. And so that goes back to that slide of getting more refugees to do the teaching, to teach other refugees and have it grow and so forth. An exciting thing is we just got new funding for this from UNHCR, a new project looking at how maps are used in decision making. So that's a new study we're going to do on how we've got all this capacity, how do we use it now to inform decision making? Think about like public planning, like maybe you go to your town board meeting, a zoning discussion, and there's a map of, pick something, the town of Webster is going to put a new sewer system in. I'm just making this up, but like there's a map showing where it is. How do we make a decision about what we want to do with our community driven by a map, right? And again, in America, we just take it for granted. Some engineering consulting firm supplied the map used in the meeting, all the capacity behind that to even do that, right? Again, I keep saying that I think in America we kind of take that for granted that's there, but in this case, to get them to that point, that's kind of the a new thing we're going to be looking at. So that's about Refugee.is. We're at 11:45. Let me talk to you now a little bit about other things happening in the camp. I'm all very excited about what I'm doing, but there's a lot of exciting things going on in the camp besides just what I'm doing. They've just created the Zaatari Innovation Center, okay? And this is a screenshot. Zaatari Youth progress towards Arab Robotic Championship. Okay? And I kept the line in. When you think of a refugee camp, teenagers making robots may not be the first thing that springs to mind. Yeah? Right? So, you know, maybe you might think the connotation of a refugee camp is despair and darkness and sadness, and I mean, sure, I mean those things are going to be anywhere. However, you know, things are happening in Zaatari. I mean, it's a really exciting place. You have, I kind of just forgot to put it in the slides, but like, you have big interest in this place. You have Microsoft is going there, offering things. You have Facebook that's been going, wanting to help with the sort of bandwidth and infrastructure. You have University College London, if you've ever heard of them, a big international university. As I've been telling RIT for years, there's lots of opportunity to get RIT involved on the world stage in a really unique place. And so robotics, I think now they're going to start doing even the new thing at RIT in the last couple of years has been esports, right? There's this whole world of competitive sports. They're going to have an esports team at the camp and so forth. Oh, yeah. Please.
Is that typical for many camps?
No, it's not. As far as I know, like the camps in Africa that I've talked a little bit about, in Rwanda, it would be a long way to get like, you know, a robotics team in a refugee camp in Rwanda, because I think the difference in this part of the world is both Syria and Jordan, again, are middle-income countries, whereas, say, in Rwanda, it's a low-income developing country. So just Rwanda, Rwanda is a whole other discussion. Rwanda's making huge progress, but if you were to show up and create a gigantic computer lab in a refugee camp in Rwanda, the Rwandans are going to say, hey, you know, what about us? There'd be a lot of like equity in terms of resources like that. Whereas in Jordan, that wouldn't be the case. So you have you know, just the capacity of the camp. You have electricity, you have better buildings, you have just more resources. The overall context is different. So that's why Zaatari is a really unique camp in that regard. That's why, quote unquote, the 5-star refugee camp is the, you know, way we think of it. Yeah.
So is the thinking that the people there are just going to stay put? Is it like a I never had to say it. So Sahrawi. There's a group. There's also a refugee camp in Morocco where people have been for 40 years.
Absolutely.
Are people here applying for asylum, other places trying to get out? Or is this sort of like, this is where you're going to be?
Great question. In the beginning, back in like 2015, the Jordanian government, my understanding of it, you know, and the views expressed are of mine alone and not of, you know, if anyone's listening. Like, the view was that you're here, you're welcome, but don't get comfortable. You're not staying. As time has gone on, the thinking has changed. Like, just like you said, you know, refugee camps don't usually ever shut down, right? Kenya, Dadaab is one camp that's been around forever, and so forth. So they've made some major infrastructure developments in the camp, and they've put an underlying, you know, sewer lines in. They put massive like electrical infrastructure. The thought is that eventually Zaatari will just become a small city, and there's Mafraq, which is the nearest town, that the two will become sort of just integrated. And so that, yes, that this could be a long-term, like it's never, and what's going on now is they're slowly transitioning away from groups like UNHCR to more local authorities are going to take over. So right now when I go to the camp, I go to base camp, there's like, it's UN international staff. So my main contact is a lady who's from Kenya, and she's an international UNHCR. She's worked in a lot of different countries. She's currently assigned to Jordan. In a couple of years, she'll move on to some other country. As opposed to the group that's back over here, they've actually changed their name. They're called Bluma now. They're actually an international organization, but they have a strong local presence in Jordan. They're going to start doing more and more. Jordanians who are going to be taking care of the services and getting the contracts to keep the camp going, as opposed to the international community. And that's part of the economic development strategy, because there is money being invested. Jordan itself as a country also has its own issues with economic development. You know, it's not, they don't have oil and all that kind of stuff. So Jordan itself had its own issues, and then, you know, 500,000 refugees show up when there weren't jobs for Jordanians to begin with. And I'll talk about that, this idea of social cohesion, of really trying to combine refugees with kind of vulnerable Jordanians. That's kind of the new direction with things.
I
Yeah.
don't want to.
No, please.
I feel like
Yeah.
I'm just asking to be
No, great, please.
So what's the economy within the camp? Like, so are there jobs and is there money exchange or is it bartering? Are food and clothes brought in from outside volunteers? Or
You still have donations. The way they do it now is a cash system. So you get, my understanding is you get a stipend based on your family size. You use that money to go to the local, there's a grocery store in the camp to buy your food. You have a lot of businesses. You have a lot of these really small little businesses. You can get livelihood jobs through base camp. That's why Refugee, the project, is a really good deal. If you get a job here, it pays better. You're getting good skill development. It's for a long time there was no turnover. A lot of times jobs like, I don't know, cleaning bathrooms. Getting a job cleaning the bathrooms in base camp, that would be a job for like 6 months, and then they rotate you out to give an opportunity to somebody else. Refugee was not like that, although they're finally starting to do some rotation. So yeah, but that's a big issue, are livelihoods. There aren't that many jobs. The Jordanians have been kind of relaxed regulations. I mean, technically you're not supposed to bring stuff into the camp, but then you walk around and see these stores. Like, where did you get like 5 washing machines? Like, how did this, they just brought it in. Like, you didn't bring it in through the front door. And the whole outer ring of the camp has like Jordanian, to me it looks like the most boring job in the world. These guys who just sit at these like kind of small little like tank things, just sit there guarding against nothing. I mean, who knows? But and somehow they bring in stuff. So you have this kind of grassroots economy. You have some cash for work programs, and then some people do leave the camp to look for work in Amman. But again, the jobs in general are limited, so that's a big issue. Yeah. So that's another good observation. Yeah. So that's why things like this, the Innovation Center. Another thing's been a really interesting development has been the Made in Zaatari effort. I don't think her name is on here, but a woman named Helen Story, who is from, I apologize, Helen, I know you're probably not listening. She's not university, it's not UCL, but it's some other it's like College of London, I don't remember, I honestly don't remember, but she did a whole year-long sabbatical. She's been in Jordan developing this idea of Made in Zaatari, of just that idea of crafts being made in the camp and then being sold. And she's taking things to London, where she's from. In the camp, Tarek is making jewelry out of pencils that are now being sold in London. So she's finding all these really creative things the refugees are doing. And this, it's a little blurry, but this guy basically is a sculptor, is that what we would call that? Sculpting pencils, making little artwork. And they've done all kinds of cool stuff. I mean, they're making soap. And there's this one area, the Made in Zaatari Center has its own space, kind of like Refugee. They've got a restaurant, it's all women run, and so forth. And that's just one example. And again, I don't even know everything that's going on there. There's a lot of people that are involved all over the world coming there. You think of all the NGOs, all the corporations and universities and so forth all around the world. So, all right, so to kind of lead into the next part of the talk then, here are my thoughts on how can you get involved with Zaatari. So the first point is, if there's one takeaway from this, it's way more than just me. I admit, I talked a lot about my stuff, right? It's way bigger though than geographic information systems. I mean, if that's what you're interested in, great. And these are things I just put up there. Teaching a class on your topic, that's actually an NSF grant I'm thinking about, is how can I fund people to go be teachers there? I put data science, education in general, a lot of, I've asked around about, hard of hearing, accessibility. There is some effort at that, but that could be a really, that's one of our,
Do you know anything more about that, deaf population there?
I honestly don't. No, I could find out if this is something you really want to. I know there is a deaf population. They do get special services, but no. Thanks for coming. Yep. I don't know specific programs and so forth and so forth. So that would be something to look into. And I know Handicap International probably is there and so forth. And then just accessibility, physical people. I remember seeing a guy who built a wheelchair with a motor on it by himself just to get around the camp. So Syrians are very, very industrious people. They solve their problems. They don't wait. So it's good. It's really civil engineering, infrastructure, water and sanitation. Water resources are a really big issue there. So dealing with access to water, use of water, the pipe network. I mean, I'm just naive here, but stuff like that.
dealing with youth issues. I showed you some examples of that. Empowering youth, dealing with a refugee, disrupted education, art, for lack of a better term, creative process. Think of every college at RIT that could contribute something at one of these topics, right? Gender issues. I talked about young women being married and so forth, access to social equity for women, social integration with Jordanians. This is the new thing I'm starting to work on. How do we integrate these efforts with Jordanians? How do we actually even get out of the camp and start working with urban refugees? The camp itself is a nice confined space, but it's a much bigger thing now, as time goes on and so forth. And really anything you can think of. I don't know who any of you are. A couple of you I recognize, but I don't know what your backgrounds, why you came here, what your motivation. But hopefully from what I've showed you, gives you something to think about that maybe if you wanted to get involved. And then this is the part where I sort of turn it over now to the people in the back. And when they have Jim Meyer's checkbook with them. And, so when we put this whole talk together, this is sort of what the motivation by doing this was, networking. This is what I'll put up. We're looking for sort of meaningful collaborations, right? We're hopefully going to we have an MOU we've been working on with UNHCR. So you guys know what MOUs, right? So we'll have hopefully some formal document establishing this relationship. And then somebody who's just, maybe this is just for me, clear ideas, willingness to get involved. Are you willing to go even over spring break, get on an airplane, fly to Jordan, deal with jet lag, get on a bus, drive for an hour through the traffic, and do it? Okay, I'll be straight up. This isn't, I don't know what this isn't Western Europe. This isn't Malmo. I've been to Malmo. It's really lovely. It's not Germany. This is a whole different experience. It's safe. It's comfortable, but it's a whole different kind of thing. And really, I am a research-oriented faculty. Do you want to get involved writing proposals? Are you going to sit down, write stuff, take your idea, make it happen in this context? Frankly, just to be upfront with you, if you want to just go to the camp and you don't really know, it's a very mission-oriented place. So if and I'm willing to do this, say, Professor so-and-so wants to come to the camp, so what is your mission? If you want to go and I want to study deaf and hard of hearing populations and design new learning modules for deaf and hard of hearing, that's a mission. If you want to just go and hang out and be like, well, I don't know, I just want to see what it's like, sort of tourists, refugee camp tourism stuff, because they get that. They get a lot of it. I've asked them this. UNHCR gets tons of academics who want, can you give us this data set on this? I'm interested in studying X, and thanks, I'll go write my paper and you'll never hear from me again, sort of thing. They're really burned out on that kind of thing. So if I were to put RIT forward, other people besides myself, I think this is what you'd have to be serious about it and have some kind of, I don't expect, maybe you've got some ideas waiting, but there's some mission, there's some purpose that's going to. In terms of funding, I'm new to the world of USAID. I've had some meetings with them. NSF is the one I have the most success with. Foundations, I've never gotten foundation funding, but this could be relevant to foundation funding and so forth. And with that, they're willing to write a check. No. Do you guys have anything to say on that side of it? I'm just kind of making a joke, but.
Yeah. So just to quickly follow up on, I think directly on what you're talking about, Brian, is we have a few ways that to support the type of work that Brian is doing, or if you're interested in talking a bit more and ideas kind of come about that you are that person that's interested in kind of being more committed into a research project proposal around Zaatari, or if you have similar ideas in other areas of the world, on our website, and we printed out a couple of these, and there's 10 of them here, but on our website under the faculty staff, you'll see that there's a call for proposals, and this is for faculty. There's different grant options that come from our office and ways that you can be supported in exploring your research. So one of them, like Brian says, international projects, which is funding your international projects. But one of the key portions of this too is that you're engaging students, right? And Jenny will talk a little bit more here about opportunities to be involved in international work and engaging students in, like Brian has with Omar, right? With Omar here, right? We want faculty doing research and seeking out funding and expanding your own professional development, but we also want to create new opportunities for students and unique opportunities for students. Also on here, if you're interested in faculty-led site visits or collaborating on international workshops or conferences. So it's not necessarily going to present someplace, funding to be able to go present someplace. We've had a number of faculty who have brought in international research conferences, and we provide funding to help to engage international partners in that and providing some funding. So so we do have this up on our website where you can apply and send it in, and we take those on a rolling basis. Also, as Brian mentioned, if you are in the middle of some international research, or you have a partnership, or somebody you've been talking to for a while, right, and you have ideas that are developing further, and an agreement like an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, or you're getting more serious and there's actually something tangible that an agreement needs to support, our office will help you with that as well too. So, or if you just need a little brainstorm and you're heading down a path and you don't know where to go, Jenny or myself or Jim Myers, our boss, are certainly there to help you through that.
One of the things that might be helpful is understanding a little bit of Lindsay's role versus my role. Lindsay and our team at RIT Global helps manage our international partnerships. So anytime we're doing research or collaborations with an organization or a university overseas, she'll help get those agreements that are necessary to facilitate those. On my end, I'm really supporting students who are outgoing internationally. So if your project or research involves students, and we hope it does, I will help you manage all those logistics, recruit students, develop a program, figure out your budgets, and things like that. That's what me and my team do. I have some great documents up here. One of the ones I would say is most important if you're here today, this isn't necessarily related to Brian's particular expertise and experiences. If you have ideas of how you can contribute on Brian's projects directly, we definitely want to hear about those and think about how we can get you there and how you can get involved. But if you have your own international partnerships or research that you would like to pursue, this is a great document for just ways you can go global. What are some of the things that you as faculty and staff in particular can engage those partners that involve students and support international efforts here at RIT? So I definitely recommend being one of those. And one of the ways to do that is definitely by designing that faculty-led study abroad program, where you are bringing your small group of students overseas to conduct research or engage in a project. So I've got some examples here about that. We need here's Cecilia, who is my office mate, back here, manages all of our faculty-led programs. We are leading maybe 20 this year or so. It is the #1 way that study abroad has grown here at RIT over the last 5 or 6 years. A majority of our students, last year we spent about 450 students on the study abroad program, and about 230 of those 300 were faculty-led programs. So I have a handout here that just talks a little bit about what the programs are. This is really student focused, but very similar. So I have a couple in particular that are coming up this summer. Most of Ghana, our second faculty-led program to Africa, led Africa this year, and one is Poland, summer So these are a couple that we're actively recruiting students to tell your students about. And then just in general, we hear a lot about the myths of study abroad. It's way too expensive, that it's dangerous, and so I have some documents here just in general about study abroad.
Okay, thanks. And then just some real nuts and bolts stuff. I am going to Jordan. If anybody here, I'll just throw it out there. If you coming away from this talk and you're feeling hands, let me go ahead. Sorry. If you come away from this talk and you're feeling inspired, I will be going to Jordan, probably leaving around Saturday the 7th, in there for 2 weeks. So if you want to go soon, if you want to really move, who knows, if you really
motivated. Yeah, because I have private I have private consulting funding, but you could potentially go soon. I don't know. Maybe that's too aggressive. That's kind of why we did this talk now. Is it too aggressive? I don't know.
It's the right timing, right? Like after hearing and
Yeah, right,
all the ideas.
right. So, I mean, so basically, based on what the ladies just told you, there is funding. That's always the main question: who's going to pay for it, right? Just to be frank. So, if you wanted to go, like, we can talk a little bit now afterwards. Because then to get in the camp is not easy. You have to send your passport. You have to get a permission letter. But if you really want to do it, you really want to go for it, we can make it happen, and that would be wonderful. Because I was thrilled. Thank you to Jim Myers, really, and you guys, all of you guys, you're wonderful. I've worked with this group a lot just for this presentation. It's taken like literally 5 years to get some bigger interest in this whole thing. And so that's why I just feel like it was very emotional to go over all those pictures, 2015, 16, 17, 18. So we're finally building some momentum here with this. I think it's a really unique experience. It's really if you want to play on the world stage, I mean, really, again, Microsoft, Facebook, all the big companies, bigger universities that are involved. It sounds cliche, but it really is a way to make a difference in the world. There's tremendous amounts of experience you can bring to your students and so forth. So I guess that's, one more I can say. So are there any more questions about the camp or just getting involved? Or I'll put that up, keep that up there, just so you have my email. Oh, okay, thanks. Yeah. Okay. You got any questions? I mean, we can just talk. I mean, we keep talking if you want. Yeah.
How exactly related with the camp itself?
Okay.
I'm working in an organization in the community. The DAC, Refugee,
Yep.
We have about 35 DAC families. We've been thinking, the reason I did this presentation is that I noticed that this topic is for the UN. So I'm wondering how to get my perspective. Because I've been listening to the stories from those families from all around the world. Systematic issues. I would love to be able to sit down with the right person, like in the UNHCR, like just from the camp end, from that system, related to the death period. And then when those families arrive here in the U.S., there's a miscommunication. The systems that they're bringing with them here to the U.S., what the education they get, the resources, the support that they get. So any of these, their expectation has a connection that so I can start that communication. I would really love that.
Yeah. If you want to just generally meet somebody from UNHCR dealing with deaf issues, but not necessarily in Zaatari.
Yeah, just have a dialogue. And, how we can empower to make a difference in this community.
I mean, I don't know. Thank you for coming. I don't know all the details of deafness. Probably what they would do when we dealt with deaf people in Rwanda refugee camps, they said talk to Handicapped International. So it could be that that's something like that is like, there could be an NGO that really kind of deals with that stuff. But I could certainly just through email, I could be happy to introduce you to somebody through email. And then you could start up a dialogue on that. And then see where it goes.
Great.
There's also another organization, Handicap International, I believe it's also called Humanity and Inclusivity now, or Inclusiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another organization called Mobility International that we work with a lot of times for helping travel abroad. So they might be a good resource as well.
Yeah, we talked more about that. Yeah, I don't want to.
If you're signing here, we can follow up.
I would also encourage you, if you haven't already, to reach out to Tommy Sarshay and GIE.
and she is the head of their international office within NTID. And Tommy has been there. So Tommy has quite a few connections that focus on deaf access throughout many international organizations in their outreach, from the original Nippon Foundation that came through, that really established within the partnerships within NTID and has then since expanded quite a bit. So she may have more direct contacts that she'd be able to talk with you about that we're less aware of.
All right. Okay. All right, so shukran. That's what that says in Arabic. Thank you.